Hey everybody, what's up? Chad here. I've been getting a lot of questions recently about my back injuries since I posted, the stuff about garage gym competition and, kind of overcoming that fear coming back from the back injury. So I wanted to give you a little bit more background on those injuries and then also show you some of the rehab strategies that I used and continue to use that, help me feel better and keep me feeling good. So the back injuries, to my knowledge, date back to 2013. Beginning of 2013, I did my first pro strongman contest at the LA Fit Expo, end of January. Then the first weekend of March, I squatted 700 for 10 in the animal cage at the Arnold. Then maybe 3 weeks after that, I did a powerlifting meet up at Super Training in Sacramento. Then about 4 weeks after that, I did a strongman contest, a Giants Live qualifier out in Las Vegas. And then about 4 weeks after that, I did another powerlifting contest out in Kentucky, where I actually made a total PR at the time of 21:71. And then I was starting to get ready to train for the first kind of big international meet that happened in Australia, which I believe at the time was called Capo Worlds. And a bunch of Americans were going over there, Russians, Icelandic, yeah, that sounds right. So I was getting ready to train for that, and I was like, I'm super strong right now, having all this good momentum. And then one day I'm doing a set of 5 deficit deadlifts, I believe. And on the first rep, it was like, oh man, that hurt. And the second rep, oh my God, that hurts even more. Third rep, more. Fourth rep, more. Fifth rep, I get to lockout, and it was like I simultaneously got tased in my low back and kicked in my nuts. Like the air went out of me, my glutes spasmed up, my low back spasmed up. I dropped the weight, and I was like, some shit just happened, But anyways, being the dumb meathead that I was, I decided I'll just finish the training. I was done deadlifting anyways. This is the last set, classic. So I did some rows, maybe, did whatever else, because I had an appointment with my longtime chiropractor, physical therapist, right after that anyways. So I just finished my training and take the 10-minute drive over to his office. And as I get kind of cool during that drive, I remember it feeling tighter and tighter and worse to the point where I had to turn. As I turned to pull into his parking lot, the centrifugal force, like having to resist the centrifugal force of that turning the steering wheel and my body trying to swing the opposite way, was pretty excruciating. So anyways, fast forward from that, I get some imaging, had 2 herniated discs, L4, L5, L5, S1, usual standard spots. I think one was 5 millimeters, one was 7 millimeters. So I take my time in the rehab with that. I know that I'm out of that capo meet. So, I take my time, come back, and I'll talk a little bit more about the strategy from that. But coming back from that, so that injury happened about June 2013, and then I did my first powerlifting meet back in June 2014 at Super Training, where I totaled 1,020 kilos, 2248. So pretty substantial, like over a 70 pound, I think 35 kilo, 77 pound total PR. I also squatted 937 at that meet for a big PR. So I was back. I was healthy. I had very successfully rehabbed that injury, no surgery, nothing like that. Go through the rest of my powerlifting career, 2014 through my last meet in 2016, keep making PRs, keep feeling better, deadlifting PRs, squat PRs, bench PRs, all that good stuff. A couple hiccups with the back here and there, but nothing more than like maybe a week. Sprained facet joint, get lazy on the rehab, prehab type of stuff. Then, fast forward all the way till 2019. I'm training jiu-jitsu, I'm lifting, I'm in the best shape maybe of my whole life, definitely since I was in college. When I was posting shirtless selfies on Instagram, all that good stuff. So I was down to about 280 pounds, training jiu-jitsu 5 or 6 times a week, lifting 3 or 4 times a week, running stadiums, doing all kind of cool stuff. And then about 2 days after a normal workout that was followed up by a long drive from Thousand Oaks back home here to Costa Mesa, about 3.5 hours in the car. The whole drive was, my back feels stiff, my back feels stiff. Nothing unusual. And then I get home, and not the next morning, but the morning after, I wake up numb from ass cheek to big toe, like a drop foot, like where I couldn't push. If this is my heel, I could not push my heel off the ground at all. So I was sort of dragging my right foot behind me, just really debilitating sciatic pain, which was a new thing that I never experienced before with the herniated discs. back at this point 6 years prior. So I have this really, really bad nerve pain. And I could get warmed up enough to where I was still training jiu-jitsu actually for the first like 3 weeks with it, and then just like, okay, I can't do this anymore. It's taken over my whole life. So I go get epidural shot in September 2019 and then another one in November 2019. They were very helpful. And the real role that an epidural plays, it's not healing your discs or anything like that. It's making you feel good enough so you can do the rehab that you need to do. And I did that pretty successfully, but a temporary fix nonetheless. So I have those shots in late 2019, early 2020, compete in jiu-jitsu again. Then all COVID and that stuff happened. So just kind of training here and there. And then get down towards the end of 2020, training, a good bit of jiu-jitsu, lifting. I'm not trying to squat and deadlift hard at this point anymore, really, since my hernia surgery, that's a front hernia, umbilical hernia surgery at the beginning of 2019. I'd put a lot of my squatting and deadlifting on the back burner because I was like, well, I've already done huge weights there, so what's the point, sort of? So we get down to the end of 2020, and my back starts bugging me more. And it was on December 31st, 2020. I was supposed to go to this consult for a school here in Orange County. And I look at Marissa and I was like, I need you to drive me because I can't drive. I can't sit up that long. My back hurts too bad. So I could recline in the seat next to her while she was driving. And I was like sweating from the pain on this about 35 minute drive to get there, because not only was my back hurting, it's sending a ton of referring pain all the way down my leg, but it was also making my right testicle very uncomfortable as well, which that was like even more concerning. It was like, oh my God, what's happening here? So it was really miserable. Later that day, I have really no experience using painkillers, but I'd had some painkillers that they gave me for this thumb surgery. So I was like, I gotta take one of these things. And so I take one, and not less than 30 seconds after I put this pill, a Norco, in my mouth, I am, pouring sweat, room kind of spinning, like, oh my God, what's happening? And, I feel like, oh, I gotta throw up. So I go into the bathroom, but my back hurts so bad that I couldn't kneel down at the toilet to throw up. So I'm now, if this is the edge of my bathtub, my torso is in the bathtub and my legs are outside of it. And I'm just like laying there like this, thinking, well, I'm about to die. This is how you die. Whatever that pill was, it's about to kill you. So finally I get up and I tell Marissa, I was like, we gotta go to the emergency room. And then as I'm grabbing my wallet and putting my sandals on, she's, kind of positioning herself around me like, or I could see her out of the corner of my eye, and it's still debated to this day whether she was getting ready to catch me or trying to get out of the way of my fall. But she's like, oh my God, baby, are you okay? And I'm sort of holding myself up by the table, and the couch is right behind me, and I get like one step and I'm able to launch myself onto the couch as I say, call 911. And the paramedics come and stuff, and I was good pretty quick. Besides, my blood pressure was like 85/50 when they came. But, got me some juice, put some ice packs all over me, and I was all right. But at that point, I was like, I have to get back surgery because this is not sustainable. So from that New Year's Eve until my back surgery on, I believe, January 12th or 13th of 2021, I could not stand up for more than maybe 2-3 minutes. As soon as I would stand, or as soon as I would sit, as soon as I would basically not be laying down, it just like was starting a timer. And the way I described it is like one of those little sand timers. And as soon as you flip it over, the grains of sand start dropping down into the lower part. Well, that lower part was my leg, and the grains of sand were fiery pain. So as soon as I stood up, we flipped that timer, and it just started filling my leg up with this just on fire pain. So maybe I could, stand or sit for like 2 or 3 minutes. It was really miserable as I waited to get this surgery. And the surgery is a microdiscectomy surgery. So if you were to think of your discs as a jelly donut, a herniated disc is the jelly coming out of the donut, and bulging disc, slipped disc, herniated disc, it's all the same thing, just of varying degrees. A slip disc is a really bad term because the whole disc isn't moving like that. That's just not how it works. The jelly inside is sliding out. So in the microdiscectomy surgery, they go and they scrape away the jelly that has come out. So I get my surgery, great surgeon here, Dr. Malikian in Orange County. And as I'm, coming back to life post-surgery, I check my phone and it has a text message from my chiropractor physical therapist, Dr. Joe Hood, who had sent me a picture that Dr. Malikian sent him of the disc material that they removed next to a ruler. And I was still pretty fucked up at this point, so I look at it and I'm like, oh my God, this is huge. So the piece of the disc material that they removed was about 9 millimeters long, or 9 millimeters thick by 44 millimeters long, which is about the size of my deformed pinky here. That's nearly 2 inches long of disc material that they had to take out. And all of that disc material had just been sitting, pressing on top of my sciatic nerve, sending on this constant nonstop action down it. But it was a instantaneous relief. I walked out of the surgery, sat in the car, no issue, and it was huge improvement. That led me into the early stages of rehab, which I'm fortunate to have a lot of great people around me like Dr. Joe Hood, Dr. Quinn Hennock, Dr. Kevin Pierce, who helped me along with those early stages of rehab, which was breathing drills and even regressed versions of cat cows and dead bugs and bird dogs and all that kind of stuff, which I was doing with really high frequency because, so 10 days, 2 weeks after the surgery, I was cleared to begin that stuff. And I was doing it, 2 or 3 times a day because it was really low level. You're not going to overtrain with dead bugs and bird dogs, especially not regressed versions of them. So when you're in those stages of rehab, you have to do it with great frequency. So I'm talking 2-3 times a day, maybe more, every day. And the more density you can put to that aspect of the training, so the higher frequency and the shorter time, the quicker you're going to get through that stage and get on to the next stage of stuff you want to do. So as I went through all the general rehab stuff, it was maybe 6 weeks to be cleared to do real rehab. And, from there I started, doing some goblet squats. So I'd been doing bodyweight squats, and then I'm doing goblet squats and really, really light stuff, and still with really high frequency, now, twice a day, 6 days a week type of workouts that were, push-ups and goblet squats and bodyweight split squats and ring rows, really low level stuff, but kind of getting back into shape, just getting my body ready, used to bracing my trunk and torso again. And so now we're into, April-ish 2021. And so now I feel like, okay, I can go back. I'm training some jiu-jitsu, but I don't need to lift heavy again. I'll bench decently hard, but I'd squat at 970. I deadlift at 815. I knew I wasn't going to be able to do that stuff again. So I kind of figured, what's the point of even beginning it? I've done enough heavy squats and heavy deadlifts for my life. So as we get on later in 2021, Marissa had been working with a physical therapist out of Australia named Pei Bokenfuso. Pei was helping me with a little bit of stuff for my back, but more in regards to jiu-jitsu and golf, so kind of rotational stuff. And Pei is the IPF lifter for Australia in the 52 kilo class, same class as Marissa. So, she's got powerlifting on her mind. And she asked me, she's like, do you want to lift heavy again? And I was like, oh, no, I've done that. And she kind of almost offhand says oh, I don't think it'd be too tough to get you back. And I was like, all right, bet, Pei, let's see. I'll do some stuff with you. So now we're in late, maybe November or December 2021, that I start doing some stuff with Pei to actually squat and deadlift again, and I'm starting at like maybe 80 kilos, 100 kilos in the squat. Mind you, I'd squatted 440 kilos before, so it's an ego hit, a slice of humble pie, and that's always part of the rehab process to have to regress like that. And so I start with that, and as I go through the year with Pei, the things that really stood out to me working with Pei were, she talked about powerlifters becoming overly specific in their training. So they're great at lumbar extension, they're great at hip external rotation, and they have very little rotation in their training at all. And I came from a athletic background of track and field where I had a lot of those things, and I was moving my body dynamically in all these different ways. And then in 10-ish years of mostly powerlifting training, I lost some of that ability. So reintroducing, for me, the big things that Pei did were reintroducing the ability to control flexion in my training, control lumbar flexion, get some hip internal rotation, and then control rotation. Because even though you're not trying to have lumbar flexion or internal rotation necessarily while you're lifting or rotation, sometimes it happens. And if you have no tolerance for it, that's when it becomes really problematic. So that was the stuff that was the most impactful for me in my rehab process. And then of course, managing the overall load of the training. So, a physical therapist will use the phrase, that an injury is a tissue's inability to adapt to load, which is kind of a big fancy sounding term. And really what it means is you did too much or you went too heavy and your body wasn't ready for it. So it was very significant for me to manage the load of my training, both volume and intensity over time. And I did that in a fairly conservative structure, because once you've, not been able to stand up for more than a few minutes, or, I remember having times where I knew I was going to have to put shoes on the next day, not just sandals. And I couldn't sleep the night before thinking about how bad it was going to hurt to try and put my shoes on in the morning. Once you've had that, you'll be a little bit more conservative in your rehab, I assure you. Managing it through just body weight exercises with super high frequency, like 3 times a day, every day, to very low level intensity exercises like goblet squats, push-ups, maybe light feet up dumbbell bench, potentially twice a day with that stuff every day. Then when you're getting to lifting light loads, back in 2014 when I first started squatting again, I had squatted 905 at this point. I started back barbell squatting 185 and front squatting 135. I'd done 905 and 675 at that point. So, but I was doing that every day, then alternating front or back squat. And then 185, then 205, then 225, conservative. Like advice that I always give to people coming back from injuries, and it's easier for me to give this advice than it is for me to take it a lot of times, is you're better off waiting an extra month than you are going back to something one day too early. And yeah, could that potentially trap you in this fear of, I'm always going to get injured in pain psychology, and that's a whole different topic? Yes, that's a possibility. But, I say that because I've had friends, I've had, clients who they're just so eager to push back to what they were doing fast, that they jump back in a little bit more than probably they know that they actually should be. And then they have a setback. So, maybe they'd gotten to step 4 of 10 steps in the rehab process, and then they have that setback, and now they're back to step 2. And then they build back up and they're at step 6 when they should have been at 5, and now they're back to 3. Rather than the person who stays just a little bit behind what they're probably capable of doing the whole time, and they're able to just chip away, tortoise and hare their way along to step 10, and then they're back. Rather than because of those setbacks, the whole process, that maybe would have taken 9 months, now it takes 15 months or 18 months, or it never gets done properly because there's so many setbacks along the way. Because now, as we sit here in December of 2022, and, that time in January 2021 where I was bedridden, or the time in, March and April 2021 where I'm doing all this boring rehab stuff, it's just a memory. It seems like so long ago, because now I'm living pain-free and I'm doing the stuff I love. I'm doing jiu-jitsu and playing golf and lifting pretty heavy again, not 900-pound squats, but 700-pound squats, you know, which it's not terrible. So so hopefully you can take something from this lesson. I'll show you some of the exercises that I like and that have been really helpful to me in this process. And if you're struggling with back pain, man, I feel for you, because it's terrible. It's like so tough. And then there's the mental part of coming back to lift heavy weights as well, which, you know, like so many things about training, it's about trusting the process. It's about knowing I've done all of these important steps along the way to get me ready for this, to trust that process and to trust your body. And it's hard. It's a lot easier said than done, because, you know, I had times in that garage gym competition where man, my opener felt kind of hard. Like, am I really going to do 700 today? Like, what if I get hurt again? What if I'm, you know, back in bed for weeks at a time and I can't move? And like, what if it never gets better again? All those thoughts were running through my head, you know, before the last squat, before heaviest deadlifts. Like, am I making a mistake here? But then on the other hand, it's like, well, you either got to get busy living or get busy dying kind of deal. Like, I wanted to do it, you know, and people would say, oh, what's the point? Well, what's the point of so much of this shit? The point is because I can, you know, the point is to do it because I can. And like, you know, Alex Hormozi has a great line. He says the work is the reward. And, you know, that's how I kind of was able to reframe, you know, all of this for myself, you know, that no, I'm not going to be trying to squat 1,000 pounds again. But everything I'm doing now is like, it's its own journey and it's its own milestones and rewards along the way. So hopefully you've been able to take something valuable from this, and, you know, good luck to you on your journeys with your own back pain and injuries. I'm not a physical therapist. Maybe I put a disclaimer at the start of this, like, this is how I do this stuff. Don't try and sue me and be like, well, Chad said in this YouTube video, this is how you fix your back. But if you have questions, I can give you my input on those down in the comments. So thank you for watching.